Okay. Okay. Our video isn't working, I see. That's a great fucking place to start off on. Okay. Great. Awesome. Wonderful. All right. So we've got that. Now let's see what the fuck is up with our other cams. Let's see what the hell's the problem here. You guys, it's been a day. My mic stand is completely broken, so there's that. Christ. Oh, what the fuck? Huh. Well, oh, that's interesting. How is it? Wait a minute. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. All right. You guys, what the hell? Okay. There we go. And there we go. Okay, finally. Now, we're going to be really careful with our mic stand today because, like I said, it is totally broken. And we're going to pick back up where we've left off, essentially. Let me know how the volume is. One sec. Got to get our admin accounts up and running here. Ban all the spammers. Okay, let's test volume. I'm not wearing my headphones today. My hair is drying. Test. Okay. We're good to go. I see we're good to go. So I'm just going to plug this in here. Hello, hello. Don't dream it's over. Sorry, kitty. My cat's like, why do you keep bothering me? I'm just trying to get my charging cord, my charging cable. Sorry, kitty. It's very long. I'm sorry. Motherfucker. I'm sorry, kitty. Hold on. Jesus Christ. What a fucking pain in the ass. I've got to do cable management, but like, I was literally just fixing my mic stand temporarily, so my cables are all over the place right now. So excuse the mess. It is very annoying, to say the least. Alrighty, let's see here. This is little garbage that can be thrown away. And here we go. It feels weird to not be able to hear myself, but I think we'll manage. Okay. Feels really weird not to hear myself, to be honest with y'all. But we'll manage. Don't let the rain Okay. And now we're going to make sure our like overall admin account is signed in. It looks like we're good to go. It looks like it is. Okay, and then let's make sure that our Discord notes are okay. It's not wanting to load. Give me one sec. We are live. We're gonna load this. Okay. And then hopefully everybody can see this as it loads. Again, the link to the Discord is in the drop down description of this live stream. Okay. Oh my gosh, did I just turn off my admin account? I'm gonna be so fucking annoyed. It loves to like kick out my admin accounts because it reads them as bot. Like, I feel like the platform reads them as bots, which is great, which is awesome. Okay, so it looks like our view counter is broken today. Okay, but let's forge ahead anyway, and let's get back to I'm like flying around on this thing. Okay. Let's get back to this absolute ass show here. This is, again, Project 2025, and the mandate for leadership. Just to be clear, guys, for those who are just joining, Project 2025 is just one, I guess you could call it a publication in a series of publications called Mandate for Leadership, as you can probably tell by the title of it. But I think a lot of people kind of don't mention anything about that, or don't, like, I don't know, like they talk about it like it's one thing that is completely alone and not connected or related to anything else, and that's not the case. So no, it is in a series. It's one among many in a series. Do let me know if the sound is too much. So again, review the operations of the Nuclear Weapons Council, NWC. The statutorily established NWC is required to report to the President and Congress, but needs to refocus its efforts on providing comprehensive oversight of DOE and DoD nuclear weapons policy and requirements. So I guess we were always going to get rid of that really good Iran deal for non-proliferation. What do you know? Budget. Concurrent modernization of the nuclear triad and its warheads will be a major challenge to the DoD and DOE budgets over the coming decade. This is, if you guys watched the last live stream, the VOD is stored somewhere, and I think I have not deleted it from YouTube yet. But it's unhinged. That's all I can say, is it's unfucking hinged. Okay, so budget. Concurrent modernization of the nuclear triad and its warheads will be a major challenge to the DoD and DOE budgets over the coming decade. DOE non-nuclear programs should be the first source of additional resources for NNSA activities. Divestment of nuclear activities from NNSA laboratories can address some overhead and operational costs. NNSA received $19.7 billion in 2021 in its that's fiscal year budget for 2023. Request was $21.4 billion. Well, yeah, that's because budgets grow and costs go up, shockingly. The next administration should ensure that funding is targeted to the accelerated development of new warheads. Just going to copy and paste that into our notes because that's a fun and fresh little little snippet there. Okay, let's just what in the world? The fuck? I think I lost everybody there. Okay. Not sure what the problem was there. That was odd. All of a sudden it just, the screen just completely disappeared. That was absolutely bizarre. Are we still on? Looks like we are. Looks like our view counter is still broken, though. I'm not sure why that is. So we're just gonna stick that under there. It's a horrible fucking idea, isn't it? So again, back to the idea we were just discussing, which is that it says here that the next administration, i.e., Donald Trump, in his second administration right now, should ensure that funding is targeted to the accelerated development of new warheads. What could go wrong? Personnel. I find myself asking that a lot. Personnel. NNSA has tended to act as though it is not part of DOE and has resisted oversight by the Secretary of Energy. The NNSA Act grants some autonomy to the NNSA, but it also makes it clear that NNSA is under the authority of the Secretary. NNSA's leaders need to understand that ultimately they report to the Secretary. FERC, Electric Reliability and Resilience, rather. I can't wait to see this. Mission overview. The Federal Power Act tasks FERC along with the FERC designated North American Electric Reliability Corporation. American Electric Reliability Corporation. Okay. So that's okay, the Federal Power Act. With promoting the reliability of the bulk power system, the transmission and generation needed to power the electric grid. NERC develops technical standards and FERC adopts them as mandatory standards, including cybersecurity standards. Well, with which transmission providers, just thank you so much for saying that. Kidding, it's obvious, it's fucking implied. Anyway, with which transmission providers, generators, and utilities must comply. You don't say. Tell us more. Under the Federal Power Act, critical electric infrastructure security and issues like electromagnetic pulse, EMP, are addressed by both FERC and DOE. In addition, the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act directed FERC to establish incentive-based rate treatments by encouraging utilities to invest in advanced cybersecurity technology and participate in cybersecurity threat information sharing programs. Well, fair enough on the threat information sharing programs, but what I'm hearing is let's adopt some single pane of glass, oversight from some overpriced ass company. I'm gonna say no thanks on that. Especially when we're cutting staff and we're not gonna have the appropriate employees to tune everything and set everything up. These things don't come out of the box just working how you want them to fucking work. It drives me nuts. The people making these laws have absolutely no idea how this stuff works on the ground, and it shows. Needed reforms. There's a growing problem with the electric grid's reliability because of the increasing growth of subsidized intermittent renewable generation like wind and solar, and a lack of dispatchable generation, for example, power plants powered by natural gas, nuclear, and coal, especially during hot and cold weather. FERC and NERC have been studying the potential for generation shortages across the nation in the summer and winter. Cyber and physical attacks also threaten the grid. Duh, tell us more. Specific areas for reform include the following: limit the impact of subsidized renewables on price formation. Subsidized renewable resources are undermining electric reliability and RTOs. The increase in subsidized intermittent resources is undermining the ability of RTOs pricing models to support the reliable dispatchable generation that is needed to serve the grid at all times. Yikes, am I right? Okay, I know not everybody works in cybersecurity, but it's a mess. Trust me, or don't. Do your own research. I don't know. That's fully up to you. It's not my problem. Anyway, not my business, madam, sir. Real quick, I want to go back up here and see. So again, we're talking about rate-based treatments. Okay, so that, again, that's a little concerning to me, because that can become a problem pretty quickly. Rate-based treatments, like, okay, great. What could go wrong? Again, like I said, I'm asking myself that a lot. Shit, reading this. Okay, rate-based, Jesus Christ. Let's run the country like a business. Anyway, reform the application of reserve margins. Reserve margins have become largely meaningless. Traditionally, the electric industry has used reserve margins to ensure that the grid has enough power plants to guarantee reliability. Generally, reserve margins represent the amount of generation available power plants to meet peak electric demand, the time of day and year when people are using the most electricity, plus the percentage of additional generation for backup. However, given the increasing number of intermittent resources like solar, which may be available during the heat of the day but disappears as the sun sets, I guess they don't know how solar works, but okay, yeah, no, fair enough. If we're talking specifically about banking, other dispatchable generation needs to be available to meet customers' electricity requirements. Therefore, the definitions and calculations of reserve margins and peak load need to be updated to focus on the modern grid reliability challenges for all times of day and year. Are you coming up or not, baby? Recognize the interdependence of electric generation and natural gas. Again, the interdependence of electric generation and natural gas pipelines continues to grow, given natural gas's important role in generating electricity, especially as backup when renewables are not available. Lack of natural gas pipelines or attacks on existing pipelines could threaten our ability to generate electricity. Expand resource diversity and reliability. Resource diversity is needed to support grid reliability. Pressure to use 100% renewables or non-carbon emitting resources threatens the electric grid's reliability. A grid that has access to dispatchable resources such as coal, nuclear, and natural gas for generating power is inherently more reliable and resilient. Protect against cyber and physical attacks. The threat of cyber and physical attacks on electric infrastructure by foreign actors like China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran, as well as terrorists, continues to grow. The attacks with guns on substations in North Carolina in December 2022 that left customers without power. Oh, and who is responsible for that? Gee, let me think. Oh, could it be MAGA by chance? Anyway, demonstrates that the grid has vulnerability. So it left customers without power. It demonstrates the grid's vulnerability. Well, I don't think we need that to demonstrate the vulnerability. But that being said, fair enough. Like attacks on the power grid and literal attacks on power stations could be a thing. Maybe we don't hype up wacky conspiracy theories so that weirdos go and attack power substations, though, you know, because these are homegrown wackos here. New policies. Reform RTOs to require reliability. FERC should direct RTOs to establish reliability pricing for eligible dispatchable generation resources or require intermittent resources to procure backup power for times when they are not available to operate. In addition, Congress should repeal subsidies for generation resources. Update the definition and calculation of reserve margins to support reliability. FERC, NERC, and DOE should revise the definition of reserve margins to ensure the grid's reliability throughout the day and the year. So use more coal is what they're saying. This will mean recognizing that reserve margins may need to consider net peak and exclude non-dispatchable resources from inclusion, Jesus Christ, in reserve margin calculations. I'm gonna copy and paste this into our notes, and I'm just gonna say they clearly want us to use more coal, or that I'm reading this as use more coal, clean coal, guys. It's clean. We can use it. Anyway, these goofies. I love you, buddy. You're a good boy. Mommy love you. I've got an adorable puppy. He's being so cute. He's being so handsome. Okay. I'm just, again, I'm going to enter the notes. weird way to say use more coal, but Christ, I can't see. But okay. All right here. Moving on. Expand and protect natural gas infrastructure in support of electric generation. FERC needs to ensure that its consideration of natural gas pipeline applications recognizes the role that natural gas plays in electric reliability. FERC also needs to make sure that RTO pricing mechanisms support generators that need to contract for natural gas service on a firm basis. Support resource diversity and reliability. FERC, NERC, and DOE play key roles in balancing consumer, industrial, and national defense interests to ensure an ongoing, reliable, plentiful, and accessible national electricity supply. NERC reliability reviews and FERC's reliability roles should be aware that over-reliance on any one power generation fuel source entails concurrent cost and availability risk. Yeah, with renewables, we really got to worry about availability, right? FERC should reform market rules that unduly discriminate against dispatchable resources needed for reliability. That's some wild ass shit. That's a weird way to say use more coal. That's a weird way to say use more coal. Hold on. Did not mean to do that. God damn it. You motherfucker. Okay, hold on. No, you fucker. God. Hello. Hi. Okay. Great. Fun times, you guys. Well, that was bizarre, but okay. We know what page we were on, so okay. All right. 420. Oh, yeah, here we go. Almost there. Wow. Okay. Thought that section would be longer. Evidently not. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. Let's just start at the top here. So again, new policies, reform RTOs to require reliability. FERC should direct RTOs to establish reliability, pricing for eligible dispatchable generation resources, or require intermittent resources to procure backup power for times when they are not available to operate. In addition, Congress should repeal subsidies for generation resources. Update the sorry, my nose ring is goofing me. Update the definition and calculation of reserve margins to support reliability. FERC, NERC, and DOE should revise the definition of reserve margins. We went over this too. Ensure the grid's reliability throughout the day and the year. This will mean recognizing reserve margins may need to consider net peak and exclude non-dispatchable resources. We'll just read through it again. From inclusion reserve margin calculations, expand or protect natural gas infrastructure in support of electric generation. FERC needs to ensure that its consideration of natural gas pipeline implications recognizes the role that natural gas plays, in electric reliability. FERC also needs to make sure that RTO pricing mechanisms support generators that need to contract for natural gas service on a firm basis, support resource diversity and reliability. FERC and NERC and DOE play key roles in balancing consumer, industrial, and national defense interests to ensure an ongoing, reliable, plentiful, and accessible national electricity supply. NERC reliability reviews and FERC's reliability roles should be aware that over-reliance on anyone, that's where we were at before, power generation fuel source entails concurrent cost and availability risk. Wow, you don't say. FERC should reform market rules that unduly discriminate against dispatchable resources, i.e. use more coal needed for reliability, like we went over before. Strengthen cybersecurity. Gosh, you don't say. My goodness, this is shocking. We need cybersecurity. Who knew? So again, we'll just read over it again and make sure that we have it all down pat. Strengthen security against cyber and physical threats. FERC and NERC need to enhance the security of the bulk power system for example, banning Chinese-made components. That's insane. Investing in transformers and hardening substations and other critical infrastructure. DOE should play a leading role in identifying and addressing threats to the grid. Okay, so a couple of things about the can't eat real food right now, so my dinner is a couple of fucking chocolates here. So, so sue me. Anyway, that's what I'm doing is all. That's the point of that that's what I'm doing right now. Here's the thing. While there have been instances where didn't know it could take that long to chew a little piece of chocolate, did you? I got you. That's what's up. Where tampering, we'll say, has been done with various parts. Components, etc. I'm not going to assume that's the only thing we're concerned about here. Let's be clear, right? Howdy ho, by the way. So I'm not going to assume that's the only thing we're concerned about, but this is something that can absolutely be scanned for, be looked at by our people, and this is a process that can be streamlined and these threats can be mitigated. Now, if we just don't want to give China money, that's another thing, but then, in that case, why are we out here moving companies to fucking China, right? I mean, capitalism has become this huge entity that won't make anything here because God forbid you have to pay somebody a living fucking wage to make it, to make the widget or whatever. A living wage, ay Dios mío. Never that. So fun that we're putting this in Project 2025. I mean, are we just not going to have components in that case? Guys, no more widgets for us. Like, honestly, it just is so short-sighted. It's just, it comes across as quite peculiar when you understand how these things work. For example, Elon Musk has recently moved parts of like SpaceX and Tesla over to China to manufacture over there. So tell me again how we're not going to use widgets that were manufactured in China. That's ridiculous. So either we're going to have to use them and up our cybersecurity game, which I don't have any problem with as a cybersecurity professional, or we're going to have to fucking manufacture things here and improve our cybersecurity game, which again, I don't have any problem with as a cybersecurity professional. Anyway, they say banning Chinese made components, investing in transformers, and hardening substations and other critical infrastructure. Now, I do agree with hardening substations and other critical infrastructure. Believe it or not, while I have worked with people in just about all IT fields, at least that I'm aware of, there could be fields that I am heretofore unaware of, but I've worked with quite a lot of different IT and cybersecurity deployments and fields, and I have worked with and even had partners myself who have worked in cybersecurity and physical security controls for things like power substations, water treatment plants, for wind farms, for solar. So, and like I said, some of these people have been folks who have worked like physically with these actual physical components. Others have been more on the back end with the software type setup and the cybersecurity and the, SIEM, XDR, EDR, SOAR. Big problem with that terminology, but anyway. So what I'm trying to get at is that I want y'all to understand something. The security of these parts of our infrastructure is held together with like duct tape and chewing gum. It's bad, especially when it comes to things like physical security controls and physical implementation, but also when it comes to things like software and cybersecurity practices on the back end. It's bad. We need to update badly. But this all sounds good, right? Until you realize that earlier on, and then later on again in this same piece, they're going to say, and they have said, but we need to cut employees. We don't want career federal employees or career civil servants. Oh my God, that'd be terrible, guys. For real, that's what they've said. I'm not exaggerating on that. Not exaggerating for effect. I know it probably sounds it, but I'm not. And to me, it's like y'all are shifting CISA, that's the cybersecurity and infrastructure security that we run for this country, right? Okay. You're shifting CISA employees over to Homeland Security to basically work with ICE. So where are we going to get the fucking employees or contractors, as they've suggested earlier on in this document? Where are we going to get them? Are we going to pull them out of thin air? Are we going to pull them out of somebody's ass? Are they going to be pulled directly out of Donald Trump's own asshole? Like, where are we going to get them? It doesn't make sense. And again, like the Bible before it, these each little book within this document has been written by a different person or group of people, with some contributors contributing to a variety of sections and some just contributing to one section apiece. But the fact remains that it doesn't work as a cohesive document because the changes being proposed need more employees. Like, I'm sorry, you're not going to improve cybersecurity with NERC and FERC and the DOE, specifically. Even if you were to shift all of CISA to the DOE and Homeland Security, which you shouldn't, that'd be insane. That is something they're thinking about doing, apparently. But You know, even if you were to do that, you still would need to hire more employees. So where are you going to get them from? Where are you going to get them? You're firing people right now. You're transferring people around right now. Where are you going to get the employees? That's been my question the whole time. Like, this is such a poorly thought out plan. It, to me, Project 2025 literally just sounds like a bunch of oligarchs trying to divvy up the resources of this country for themselves, you know, between themselves, right? Like a group of oligarchs going, I want this piece, I want that piece. And at the end of the day, that's what's happening. I mean, that's what's unfolding right fucking now. But again, this all sounds great until you realize that we need actual fucking employees to implement all of this. And I don't know if you guys are aware of how fucking stressful cybersecurity can be, and how much cybersecurity employees are sort of prone to burnout, but it's extraordinarily stressful, and burnout is a huge problem. So not only are you going to need employees for right now, you're going to need people for later on when folks decide to fuck off and find another career. It happens all the time in cyber. It happens all the time in cyber. Only the crazies like me stick around, okay? Only the crazies stick around. I'm looking at you, some of y'all that I know who I've worked with before, with all respect and love. I'm looking at y'all. I'm looking at y'all. But my concern, and the whole reason I bring all this up, is that all this leaves us so much more open to attack than I think most people realize. Not just physical attack, right? But cyber attack on physical controls, just cyber attack in general. And to start trying to thread this needle between like firing a bunch of people and somehow also bringing on a bunch of new cybersecurity personnel, while also never using things manufactured in China, don't you know? This is going to kill our cybersecurity. This is going to kill our infrastructure even more dead than it already is. The only thing I can possibly personally assume is that some of this is being done in order that when things do collapse, some private company can come in and be a knight in shining armor and say, see, we're here to save things. We're here to save you guys. Guys, we're here to save you now. Let us take over. And I'm really concerned that that is exactly what the fuck is going to happen one of these days. So anyway, enough blathering on from crazy cybersecurity lady. Let's keep going. Also, I'm sorry. Again, enhancing the security of bulk power systems with few employees and banning all Chinese-made components. DOE should play a leading role in identifying and addressing threats to the grid. FERC, that's FERC, RTOS, rather, ISOS, and electric power markets. Mission overview. For more than 20 years, FERC has issued regulations and directed policies for the creation and operation of regional transmission organizations, RTOs, and independent system operators. Sounds good. Not so great in effect, guys. Anyway, ISOs. To manage the dispatch of generation and transmission of electricity under the misnomer electric power markets. These, well, we just have to be pedantic, don't we? Anyway, these regulatory constructs use marginal price clearing auctions, in some cases both hourly day-ahead auctions and 5-minute day of need auctions, and locational marginal pricing to procure electric generation and set prices to meet the needs of the grid. Some RTOs also have capacity auctions. Of the nation's 7 RTOs, 6 are subject to FERC jurisdiction, but not ERCOT in Texas. Oh God, please don't tell me we're using ERCOT as an example. I'm going to literally go through the window right now. I'm just going to go through the fucking ceiling if that's what we're saying. Just like an ejector chair. Areas without an RTO include the southeast and portions of the west. Although California is in an RTO, my God, saying something good about California, how could you? How could you? I imagine all of the MAGA people will stop reading right there, just burn their copies instantly of Project 2025, Mandate for Leadership. Needed reforms. Too many conservatives have assumed that because RTOs are described as electric power markets, market forces of supply and demand set electric prices and benefit customers. RTOs are complex regulatory constructs with rules set by FERC that obscure government interference and preferences for preferred resources. Furthermore, government preferences and subsidies for resources like wind and solar distort price formation for electricity that is undermining the reliability of the grid. Finally, customers are not seeing the full economic benefits that non-fuel subsidized resources should provide. Additionally, electric reliability is threatened in many RTOs as subsidized renewables like wind and solar receiving tax credits, which I guess is bad. And state renewable portfolios standards, RPS programs have disrupted market functions. Price distortions have driven out reliable, dispatchable resources like coal. I knew it, huh? You guys need to buy me a drink if you disagreed with me before that they were talking about coal. Haha. Anyway, programs have disrupted market function. Price distortions have driven out reliable, dispatchable resources like coal, natural gas, and nuclear generation in various RTOs. The result, electric reliability is decreasing in many parts of the country. Sure, it's because we're not using enough coal, guys, don't you know? It's not because we don't put enough money into our infrastructure. It's actually because we're not using enough coal. Problem solved. Use more coal. You're welcome. You're welcome. Anyway. So like coal, natural gas, and nuclear generation in various RTOs. And we all know that nuclear isn't possible everywhere. Nuclear is kind of like data centers. They are an important part of our infrastructure, but we should not be folding them into capitalism and like placing them everywhere. And they shouldn't be like for profit. I mean, I think all energy should and all critical infrastructure should be owned by the people, but you know, that's just my bias. So my cat's trying to come up right now. Are you coming up, baby? Come on up. Come on up, Chooch. Are you coming up, Anna? Come here, baby. Anna, psst. Are you coming up, my love? I've got you. I've got you, honey. Okay, carefully. Please don't scratch if you can help it. Thank you, honey. Thank you, baby. You okay? All right. There's the ears. There's the baby. I said there's the baby of the house. I see there's the baby of the house. So, furthermore, government preferences and subsidies for resources like wind and solar distort price formation for electricity, but preferences for coal are fine, just so that you guys know. For electricity that is undermining the reliability of the grid, finally, customers are not seeing the full economic benefits that non-fuel subsidized resources should provide. Additionally, electric reliability is threatened in many RTOs. Subsidized renewables like wind and solar are receiving tax credits, like we said, and state renewable portfolios, RPS programs have disrupted market functions. Price distortions have driven out reliable, dispatchable resources like, as we covered, coal, natural gas, and nuclear generation in various RTOs. The result, electric reliability is decreasing in many parts of the country. Ow, I've got a cat scratching me. Hold on, guys. One sec. One moment. One moment. Fuck's sake. Hold up. Whatever. Doesn't matter. One sec. Gotta do something here. I'm running too many progies. I gotta do some cleanup. Okay. Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Okay. Should be good. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. Okay. Hold up. Let's check one more time. Yeah, what the heck? Hi, baby. Beautiful girl. Weird. What on earth? Okay, that was annoying. Sorry. Having problems. One quick second here. Just make sure that we, oh yeah, we're good. I just wanted to make sure that we have everything running optimally, so give me one sec. Of course, there's a kitty. Sorry, baby, I didn't mean to poke you. There's a kitty sitting right where I need to put this. Anna, I don't want you to scratch me, okay? One sec, guys. I'm going to run an upgrade update, and then I'm going to run a cleanup debug so that we continue running smoothly around here. Anna Marie, you're so precious. She's like, the way she moved her head, she's like, what do you want? I'm right here. Don't give me commands. She's like, I'm a regal older young lady, ma'am. Okay. One sec, guys. I apologize for this. So annoying. Okay, so while I am slowly getting the fucking sorry. While I'm slowly getting the parts I need for my fucking Threadripper workstation that I'm going to build, I am trying to make sure that my current systems continue to run as smoothly as possible. Okay. All right, one quick second. So we're just making sure that we're good to go. Oh, okay. Fuckaroo. Shit, I see the problem here. All right, one quick sec. I just have to run some code. I don't know if anybody else watched Muppet Babies, but fucking I did. Okay. What do you want? Okay, we're just about done here. Ow, fucker. We're just about done here. Do. Okay, there we are. So I see what's going on. Okay. We just have to repair some sim links here real quick. So fucking annoying, y'all. Alrighty. Just making sure that I've run all the correct code here, and then I will be right back to it, I promise. I just need to prune some old sim links and make sure that the others are looking good. Okay, I know. I did do that, didn't I? Fucker. Shit. Okay. One sec. We have to regenerate some certificates and do some more reinstalls real quick. Make sure permissions are good. Ah, fucker. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Ouch. Okay. I do apologize for the interruption. If I don't fix this, we're going to continue having working memory issues. So give me up to 5 minutes and I'll chat with you in the meantime. In fact, while we're doing this, I will go ahead and share this, all of this. All right. Knocking out of our project 2025. Okay. Now I will say one thing. All of this is my fault because I fucked up some directory permissions when I created like a pseudo user. So I don't know. I'm another pseudo user besides my main account. So yeah, bear with me. Bear with me. Okay. Oh Christ. Fuck. All right, perfect. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Okay. This should be good to go. We'll see. Ah, it's deprecated. That's okay. No, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Okay. One quick sec. Okay. One sec, we're almost done. Yeah, I'm thinking that's what I'll do. Okay. Okay. All right, perfect. We're good to go. Back at it like a crack addict. Or like kitties who super enjoy their kitty food. You don't know. Here we go. Look, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody with addiction. That's genuinely sounds extremely horrible and rough. So, electric reliability is threatened in many RTOs. Let's finish with that part. The result, electric reliability is decreasing in many parts of the country. Well, okay, because we're not using enough coal, guys. Anyway, RTOs are not providing the full economic benefits of renewables to customers. Okay, because RTOs are using marginal price auctions where, as we said before, natural gas usually sets the clearing price paid to all generators. The economic benefit of renewables, no fuel tax credits, etc., are flowing mainly to renewables investors and not to customers, although customers do benefit from some decrease in marginal costs. As if we care about customers. Now, come on. Yet reliability is decreasing, so customers are getting the worst of both worlds, paying for electricity and having less reliability for the money. Gosh, it's almost as if we should have some sort of, competition, or that we should have communally owned electrical deployments. I don't know, something crazy like that. Couldn't be, though. We just need to use more coal, guys. That's what it's clean coal. You get it, coal that's been cleaned. That's what we really need. We don't need to, localize utilities or anything wild and crazy and fucking communist like that. Am I right? Yeah, reliability is decreasing. Come on. Good. No. Anyway, moving on. Big green. Big green, you guys. And big tech want RTO expansion. Okay. Well, interesting that they were so against big tech, quote unquote, when this was written, but now they're like hand in glove with big tech. Anyway, big green and big tech want RTO expansion. Oh no. Renewable developers, large industrial users, and big tech tend to want RTO expansion for their own economic and ESG reasons. These entities can benefit economically from the complexity and marginal pricing regime of the RTOs. Oh, sorry, Kitty. Increased costs and reliability problems are often shifted to other customers. Unlike vertically integrated utilities, of course, that's what they want, vertically integrated utilities. Good girl, baby. You're so precious. You're so graceful. You're the most graceful, precious kitty on earth. Yes, you are. Mwah. 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 My little baby. But this kitty is my absolute little baby. She's been with me since 2015. She's just an older young lady kitten. Yes, she is. She's a precious slightly older young lady kitten girl. Yes, she is. She is so precious. She is so precious. I swear though, the oh boy, and I'm not trying to complain. She's wonderful. Anna is perfect. Mommy loves her. Perfect even. She's so perfect. I adore her. But yeah, like the Nebelung Russian blue mixes, holy crap, the fur sticks to everything. It's so bad. Like I never realized, like obviously when I adopt her, I was like, yeah, I know she'll shed, blah blah blah, cats shed. No. Oh no, you sweet summer child, you. No, she sheds like a motherfucker. Like she sheds like crazy. My goodness. It's a shed over here. Anyway, unlike vertically integrated utilities that are accountable to state elected officials and state public utility commissions, RTOs, and their participants are accountable only to FERC. Even then, however, accountability is indirect through the tariffs rules that the RTOs adopt and FERC approves. In addition, unlike utilities, generators in an RTO have no obligation to serve customers, as if we're caring about that here, right? NICA just has adopted this new customer-centric way of thinking. New policies. FERC must, that's FERC, make reliability, if I could talk, of the grid and service to end use top priorities. Wait, FERC, FERC must make reliability of the grid and service to end use top priorities. What are the end use top priorities again? I guess we're going to see down here. To do so, it should re-examine, re-examine the premise of RTOs. RTOs no longer seem to work for the benefit of the American people. Marginal price auctions for energy are not ensuring the reliability of the grid and are not passing the full economic benefits of subsidized renewables to customers. FERC needs to re-examine the RTOs under its jurisdiction to make sure that they procure reliable and affordable electricity for the benefit of the American people, ensure that RTOs return to market fundamentals so that they serve customers, not special interests and political causes. FERC should require RTOs to ensure that reliable, dispatchable resources are properly valued to provide electricity when needed for the benefit of customers, as if they care. Potential reforms could include 1. Requiring renewable generators to provide intraday backup. That'll kill them, especially without any new employees. By dispatchable on-demand generation so that bids by intermittent resources into RTOs, sorry, I've got cat fur everywhere, equate fairly with far more valuable on-demand dispatchable resources. Creating dual energy markets for dispatchable and non-dispatchable resources, or eliminating capacity markets where intermittent resources participate, and instead establishing quote-unquote reliability markets where dispatchable on-demand resources participate. Alternatives to marginal price auctions also should be considered. Direct the RTOs to ensure that the economic benefits of renewables like tax credits and no fuel costs are passed on to customers, and undue discrimination that allows subsidized resources to distort price formation in RTOs. What, discrimination against clean coal? Is it more of that clean coal, you guys? Unbelievable. Actually, I kid. It's very believable. Affirm its commitment that states will decide whether to join an RTO instead of imposing RTOs on regions that do not want them. FERC should also consider allowing states to enter into non-RTO power pools with alternative structures for the sharing of resources in electric generation. FERC Electric Transmission Mission Overview. Under the Federal Power Act, FERC has the authority to regulate the rates, terms, and conditions of interstate electric transmission pursuant to court cases. Interstate transmission can be entirely within a state, although the part of Texas served by ERCOT is not under FERC for transmission jurisdiction. Needed reforms. FERC has been considering how to plan for and allocate costs for new transmission lines and how new generation resources will be interconnected to the transmission grid. Transmission expansion and replacement decisions are usually made by local utilities or by an RTO or regional planning entity. Okay. Through two major rulemakings, FERC is attempting to facilitate the building of more long-range transmission lines and to socialize more of the costs of transmission build-outs to more customers in order to make it cheaper for renewable developers, primarily to interconnect. Again, not sure why that's bad. to the grid and sell their power. Socializing such costs is a form of subsidy for generators and will cause further will cause further price distortions in RTOs and ISOs that will make it less economical for reliable dispatchable resources like coal, nuclear, and natural gas to stay operational and support reliability. Also, under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, DOE and FERC are granted authority to cite and to permit high priority transmission lines as national interest electric transmission corridors, NIETCs. The Inflation Reduction Act provides funding to DOE to support transmission expansion. These initiatives will undermine state input and decision making. FERC will consider rules on how NIETC transmission applications are to be made. Okay. Interesting. New policies. FERC should either change course on its existing transmission rulemakings if still in progress, or issue a new rulemaking too. And I assume we're going to have a whole friggin' list down here. Yay, fun times. One sec. I'm just finishing my nails. This stuff comes off so easily, but it's so darn cute. Okay. Did we get kicked off the air? Did we? No, we didn't. What the heck? Okay. What the hell? I just got kicked out of my own dang stream. Imagine that. Haha. Anyway. Anywho. Okay. Let's make sure that this is good to go first before we go on reading. That was odd. Okay. That was definitely odd. Pardon me. So the list here under, again, new policies for FERC should either change course on its existing transmission rulemakings that's still in progress, or issue a new rulemaking to ensure that transmission planning and interconnection processes are resource neutral. Okay, why is that? Prevent socializing costs for customers. Why? Who do not benefit from the projects or justifying such cost shifts as advancing vague societal benefits such as climate change. Wait a minute. So just because I don't have a kid in school doesn't mean I don't pay taxes that help support the funding for the school district where I have a home, right? We all get that, hopefully. Okay? Just because I don't physically go to the library very often doesn't mean that I don't need to pay my fair fucking share in taxes for the goddamn library, okay? This is called being a community member and social benefit, okay? Socializing programs is a great way to make sure that everybody pays as little as possible, because more people are stepping up and paying their fair share. That's part of the whole reason that we need billionaires and, well, now trillionaires, and yes, even millionaires, to pay their fair fucking share of taxes, and for businesses to do the same, because otherwise it falls onto the middle class and onto the poor. And that's not fair for us to have to heft that burden and subsidize those millionaires, billionaires, and trillionaires and their companies. So don't believe the hype. Socializing costs like these are, is a great idea, frankly. It's very beneficial. Very beneficial. Not shocked to see the argumentation that it isn't here in Project 2025, but just thought I'd let you know that it is very beneficial. Unbreak my heart. Is that Tony Braxton? I think it is. Say you love me again. Undo this hurt you caused when you walked out the door and walked out of my life. uncry these tears I cried so many nights. Unbreak my heart, my heart. It would unbreak my heart in order for billionaires to pay their fair share. That would really unbreak my heart. I don't know about y'all. Anyway, prevent socializing costs is a terrible idea for customers who do not benefit from the projects or justifying such cost shifts as advancing vague societal benefits. Yeah, vague societal benefits is such as not paying as much as you would if those costs weren't a shared burden. And climate change, sure, that is a benefit. That's not the main benefit from general socializing of costs. Stop cost allocation from becoming a subsidy for generators, such as renewables. Okay, whatever that means. With respect to NIETC, FERC, and the new DESAS, with respect to the NIETCs, FERC and the new DESAS should ensure that state interests are respected and not allow such NEITC transmission lines to be developed as a mere subsidy to renewable developers. Yeah, give it to coal instead, herder. Furthermore, much of the transmission build-out, including its attendant costs, is being driven by renewable developers seeking market share. So get out of here, renewable developers. This is coal's sector. Ow, fuck, sorry. This is big oil's sector. Get out of here. We want the money. That's what they're saying. Get out of here. We want the profits, not you. Boo, get out of here. I mean, that's the basic argument, though. I'm being snarky, but it ain't wrong. Well, the argument's wrong, but I'm not wrong in my description of it. How about that? How about them fucking apples, guys? So, I'm not sure why renewable companies should essentially fuck off to BFE, but other companies are like fine to stay. That's a lot. But okay. Like, go off, I guess. Kind of weird, but go off. They just don't want to share the market, I guess. So FERC natural gas pipelines, and like I said, big coal and big oil. Mission overview. FERC permits sites and authorizes the construction and operation of interstate natural gas pipelines. It also regulates the rates for the shipping of natural gas, but not the price of the natural gas commodity, which is market-based. FERC is charged with ensuring that natural gas pipelines are approved if they are required by the public convenience and necessity. Pipeline permitting is subject to environmental reviews under NEPA. Oh, what are we going to say? Get rid of that? I'll bet that's what we're going to say next. Anyway, and the rate for the pipeline and the shipping of the commodity is set by FERC under a just and reasonable standard. Once FERC approves the project, the holder of the certificate has the sovereign power of eminent domain. Oh God, we're not doing eminent domain. The sovereign power of eminent domain. Christ on a crutch. What kind of libertarian fucking nightmare is this? Honestly, that's probably only libertarian to the government, not to the people. That's bizarre. Fuck eminent domain. It's horrifying. No thanks. God damn it, I have to reapply this stuff so much it's running low. It basically has the same consistency as gold leaf, which is why I like it. Sun money for nail polish. Actually, you don't have to. Just watch and learn and ask questions. And the Discord link is in the description of this live stream. That's where we're doing the notes on the whiteboard app that's on screen right now. 2 seconds here. Okay, 1, 2. God damn it, it's going to take me longer than 2 seconds. Give me 4 more seconds starting now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Haha, just about. So, just 1 sec, and we'll be finished. It was just really bugging me to have to look at my crusty ass nails. Like, okay. And when you have chronic illness, you kind of do things whenever you can. So, natural gas pipelines. It also regulates the rates, I said, the rates, the rates for the shipping of natural gas, but not the price of the natural gas commodity, which is market-based. FERC is charged with ensuring that natural gas pipelines are approved if they are required by the public convenience and necessity. Pipeline permitting is subject to environmental reviews under NEPA, and the rate for the pipeline and the shipping of the commodity is set by FERC under a just and reasonable standard. Once FERC approves the project, the holder of the certificate, like we said, has the sovereign's power of eminent domain. Hi, baby. Not the best, but okay. Needed reforms according to Project 2025 and its authors. Okay, are you coming up again? I love you, baby. Here, let's move this over here a little bit. There we go. Needed reforms according to Project 2025 are natural gas pipelines are vital for the economy, manufacturing, heating, and electric generation. Opposition from Keep It in the Ground environmentalists has made it harder to gain approvals for natural gas pipelines. Gosh, you don't say. Under Democrat leadership, FERC has proposed official policies to consider upstream and downstream GHG emissions from the use of the natural gas that would be shipped in the pipeline to be part of FERC's public interest determination when deciding whether to approve a pipeline. There's conflicting direction from the DC Circuit on the GHG issue, which also could be seen as a major question issue under the Supreme Court's West Virginia v. EPA decision. So they're saying challenge that decision under the U.S. Supreme Court. Have them reinterpreted or submit your own reinterpretation and see if it sticks. So obviously, stacking the Supreme Court has been part of this entire project, right? And of this entire, the intent of all of this. Anyhow, new policies. FERC should recommit itself to the NGA's purpose of providing the American people with access to affordable and reliable natural gas, limit its NGA decision-making on natural gas pipeline certificates to the question of whether there is a need for the natural gas, limit its NEPA analysis to the impact of the actual pipeline itself, not indirect upstream and downstream effects. In addition, Congress, the states, and FERC should consider how better to protect and compensate property owners whose property is taken for the benefit of the public. Again, that's eminent domain. FERC also needs to be mindful that natural gas pipelines and projects are important for domestic access to natural gas, including local natural gas utilities, natural gas-fired electric generation, and manufacturing, as well as for exports of liquefied natural gas. FERC LNG export facilities. Mission overview. FERC permits sites and authorizes the construction and operation of LNG export facilities. It does not authorize the export of natural gas. DOE exercises that authority. LNG export facilities are important for delivering natural gas to markets around the world and have become an important policy tool in limiting the ability of Russia and Middle Eastern, Jesus Christ, I'm really coordinated today, of Russia and Middle Eastern countries to use energy as a tool in foreign affairs. Oh, great. What could go wrong? again. Needed reforms according to Project 2025. LNG exports are opposed by climate activists. In addition, some domestic manufacturers argue that LNG exports decrease available U.S. supplies of natural gas and increase the domestic price, thereby harming the competitive advantages of U.S. manufacturers in world markets. Currently, most LNG export facilities are along the Gulf of Mexico. It's the Gulf of America, guys. In Texas and Louisiana. Attempts to build facilities on the West Coast, Jordan Cove LNG, and the East Coast have not moved forward for a variety of reasons. Delays and cost of litigation can cause developers to cancel projects. An Alaska facility was approved by FERC in 2020, and the Biden administration has indicated its support. An East Coast facility in Pennsylvania or nearby would unlock Marcellus Shale natural gas for export. Jeez, not good. The Marcellus Shale should not be fucked with, but okay, fair enough. FERC is considering policy statements that would consider GHG emissions as part of its NEPA review and its NGA determination as to whether approval of an LNG export facility is consistent with the public interest. New policies since Congress through the NGA has already determined that LNG exports to countries with free trade agreements are in the public interest, and because LNG exports help to ensure America's ability to support our friends and allies around the world while also supporting domestic natural gas production, FERC should not use environmental issues like climate change as a reason to stop LNG projects, should ensure that the natural gas pipelines that are needed to deliver more of the product to market, both for domestic use and export, are reviewed, developed, and constructed in a timely manner. Mission overview. The Energy Reorganization Act of 1974 created the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, NRC. Before then, the commercial nuclear industry was regulated by the Atomic Energy Commission, AEC, which was established by the 1954 Atomic Energy Act. Importantly, the AEC was responsible for encouraging and regulating commercial nuclear power. Broad criticism of this dual function was a major factor in the establishment of the NRC, which held regulatory authority, while the newly established Department of Energy held the advocacy function. Today, the NRC is responsible for a broad range of regulatory activities, including reactor safety, oversight of nuclear materials, and protection against radiation, as well as permitting new reactors, certifying new reactor designs, and regulating nuclear waste management activities. Needed reforms in 1989. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just copy and paste this into notes because this is definitely interesting and informative, even if it's a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I love that. That's my latest note. Weird way to say use more coal, but okay. Okay. Anywhere. Ugh. Oh, for fuck's sakes. Oh, for Pete's sake. So, needed reforms, again, according to the authors of Project 2025. In 1989, the NRC established alternative licensing processes that were meant to provide a more predictable and efficient regulatory pathway for new light water reactors, LWRs, by combining construction and operating nuclear power plant licensees, allowing for early site permits, and establishing a framework for pre-approval of reactor designs. More recently, the Nuclear Energy Innovation and Modernization Act directed the NRC to establish a technology-neutral licensing process for new advanced reactor technologies. Despite these efforts, the NRC remains rather a significant cost and regulatory barrier to new nuclear power. Especially frustrating is that these costs, to a large extent, are due to the agencies being overly prescriptive rather than outcomes focused. Yeah, don't worry about like the people you could harm or the communities you could fuck up. Worry about like the bottom line, guys. Okay, is what they're saying. To a large extent, are due to the agencies being overly prescriptive rather than outcomes focused, and fall on well-known and understood LWR reactor technologies. Okay. New policies. While refocusing its regulatory efforts on new reactor technologies, the NRC should also continue to ensure the security of radiological sources and mitigate cybersecurity risks across the industry. Applications for combined operating licenses, COLs, and design certificates that rely on light water technology should generally be completed within 2 years. Early site permits should generally be issued within 1 year for construction on ouch kitty or adjacent to an existing reactor site. Additionally, the NRC should expedite the review and approval of license extensions of existing reactors, which will require the NRC to streamline and focus its NEPA review process. Hi, kitty boo boo. Set clear radiation exposure and protection standards. Ouch! Cripes. By eliminating ALARA, ALARA, as low as reasonably achievable as a regulatory principle and setting clear standards according to radiological risk and dose rather than arbitrary objectives. Okay. Work with Congress to reform its funding approach so that licensee fees are generally required for activities that are specific to a regulated entity, with other agency costs being provided through normal appropriations. Budget. In fiscal year 2022, the NRC was required to recover approximately 85% of its $887.7 million budget through licensee fees, rather. The Nuclear Energy Innovation and Modernization Act requires the NRC to recover nearly all of its costs through fees. These reforms would likely not cost additional money, but could rebalance the fee versus appropriations calculation. Now, yeah, that being said, industries that have to recover their own costs, and in parts of the government, entities within the government that have to recoup their own costs, are not particularly successful. And like Republicans did that to the U.S. Postal Service for quite a while, actually, and it has had devastating effects. So that I can agree with, but like, why not think of paring that down in more sensible departments and parts of the government? I mean, that's my that's my question, at least. So I'm just going to copy and paste that into the notes here. And I know you're a good girl. I love you, kitty. I know, baby, you're a good girl. My little chooch, my little baby. Okay. Part 13. Environmental Protection Agency. Ruh-roh. This is going to be fun. Okay. Let's just go ahead and yeah, there we go. We'll divvy it up here. Divide it up by changing up colors. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Ouch. Okay, then let's go ahead and add in a little shape behind that, just to make it pop a little bit, especially for people with lower vision, which I get, believe me, I do. Okay, now, you okay, Bubba? I love you. Mwah, you good doggy. He's a good boy. Let's just start right here, I guess. Mission statement creation, again, moving back. Part 13, Environmental Protection Agency by Mandy M. Gunasekara. Mission statement, creating a better environmental tomorrow with clean air, safe water, healthy soil, and thriving communities. A conservative U.S. Environmental Protection Agency will take a more supportive role toward local and state efforts, building them up so that they may lead in a meaningful fashion. This will include the sharing of federal resources and agency expertise. Creating environmental standards from the ground up is consistent with the concept of cooperative federalism embedded within many of the agency's authorizing statutes and will create earnest relationships among local officials and regulated stakeholders. I see. Okay. This in turn will promote a culture of compliance. A conservative EPA will track success by measured progress as opposed to the current perpetual process, and will convey this progress to the public in clear, concise terms. True transparency will be a defining characteristic of a conservative EPA. Will it? Will it really now? This will be reflected in all agency work, including the establishment of open source science to build not only transparency and awareness among the public, but also trust. The challenge of creating a conservative EPA will be to balance justified skepticism toward an agency that has long been amenable to being co-opted by the left, capital L, for political ends, against the need to implement the agency's true function, protecting public health and the environment in cooperation with states. So pass it all down to the states. It's not our fault. It's not our problem. Pass it all down to the states, guys. Pass it all down to the states. Wow. Further, the EPA needs to be realigned away from attempts to make it an all-powerful energy and land use policymaker and return to its congressionally sanctioned role as environmental regulator. Gosh, you don't say. Oy. They're really saying the stupid parts out loud here. Let's go ahead, throw that into our notes, and there we have it. Moving on, moving over town to town, yeah. Moving on, and I can't seem to slow down. Okay. Wow, that is so dumb. Overview, the status quo. Not surprisingly, the EPA under the Biden administration has returned to the same top-down coercive approach that defined the Obama administration. There has been a reinstitution of unachievable standards designed to aid in the transition away from politically disfavored industries and technologies toward the Biden administration's preferred alternatives. Sorry. Take some of my meds. My body is on fire. Okay, one sec. Cat fur. Ruh-roh. Okay. This over here. Unless it would be cute to have purple on top of this. I don't know. Anyway, overview. The status quo. Not surprisingly, the EPA under the Biden administration has returned to the same top-down coercive approach that defined the Obama administration. There has been a reinstitution of unachievable standards. Designed to aid in the transition, quote unquote, away from politically disfavored industries and technologies and toward the Biden administration's preferred alternatives. It's almost like they were representing the people or something weird, fucking wacky and wild like that. But that couldn't be the case. We have to assign the people who disagree with us the worst possible intentions. We can't just assume they're doing their best. This approach is most obvious in the Biden administration's assault on the energy sector as the administration uses its regulatory might to make coal, oil, and natural gas operations very expensive and increasingly inaccessible while forcing the economy to build out and rely on unreliable renewables. This approach has also been applied to pesticides and chemicals as the Biden administration pushes the greening of agriculture and manufacturing among other industrial activities. Well, are we saying that we want to bring back harmful pesticides? Like what's the point? What's being said here? Anybody? Guys? Hello, is this thing on? Okay, let's see. Not sure if this whole thing is going to fit there, but we'll see. Okay. As a consequence of this approach, we see the return of costly, job-killing regulations that serve to depress the economy and grow the bureaucracy, but do little to address, much less resolve, complex environmental problems. In some instances, these actions even work to undermine environmental efforts as they push industries overseas to countries whose enforcement of pollution control requirements is seriously deficient, if indeed they have any meaningful requirements at all. So we should have less requirements here because other countries might have bad ones, and we might use those countries instead of ours, if I understand it correctly. The stupidity here, you guys, is honestly grating, which I'm sure that if anybody is watching this here in the future, not on the live, you're starting to pick up. If you guys are watching it on the live, you already get it. I know that. Anyway, as a consequence of this approach, we see the return of costly job-killing regulations that serve to depress the economy and grow the bureaucracy, but do little to address, much less resolve, complex environmental problems. In some instances, these actions even work to undermine environmental efforts as they push industries overseas to countries whose enforcement of pollution control. Yep, that's right. That's what it said. Requirements is seriously deficient. If needed, they have... if indeed they have any meaningful requirements at all. Meanwhile, agency costs and staffing have increased significantly. The EPA's fiscal year FY 2023 request included a 28.8% increase in funding and a 13.3% increase in staffing, making it the highest funding ever in EPA's history. Compared to the Obama administration, there is one key difference in the Biden administration's approach. In a concerted effort to diminish congressional oversight, the position of EPA administrator has been overshadowed by the creation of multiple climate czars at the Biden White House. I doubt it. In effect, current EPA administrator, again, back when Biden was president, was in charge, not now. So the current, i.e. former EPA administrator, Michael Regan, who has a reputation as a well-meaning, generally capable former state official has been left out of the political loop, serving mostly as a pleasant distraction from EPA's expansive, costly, and economy-destroying agenda, a co-opted mission. The EPA has been a breeding ground for expansion of the federal government's influence and control across the economy. Embedded activists have sought to evade legal restraints. They're activists now, the people at the EPA. In pursuit of a global climate-themed agenda, aiming to achieve that agenda by implementing costly policies that otherwise have failed to gain the requisite political traction in Congress. Many EPA actions in liberal administrations have simply ignored the will of Congress, aligning instead with the goals and wants of politically connected activists. Pursuit of this globally focused agenda has distracted the agency from fulfilling its core mission, thereby creating a backlog of missed statutory deadlines and at times has even led to preventable environmental disasters. During the Obama administration, for example, the U.S. experienced two of the worst environmental disasters in decades, including the Flint, Michigan water crisis. No word on the Potomac now, huh? Including the Flint, Michigan water crisis in 2014 and the Gold King mine spill in 2015. Beyond creating such immediate and tangible harm in various communities, an EPA led by activism and a disregard for the law has generated uncertainty in the regulated community. Vendetta-driven enforcement, weighted analytics, increased costs, and diminished trust in final agency actions. Although the U.S. environmental story is very positive, there has been a return to fear-based rhetoric within the agency, especially as it pertains to the perceived threat of climate change. I'm mischaracterizing the word mischaracterizing, imagine that. Mischaracterizing the state of our environment generally and the actual harms reasonably attributable to climate change specifically is a favored tool that the left, with a capital L again, uses to scare the American public into accepting their ineffective liberty-crushing regulations, diminished private property rights, and exorbitant costs. In effect, the Biden EPA has once again presented a false choice to the American people, that they have to choose between a healthy environment and a strong, growing economy. Historical role and purpose. For many decades, a rapid industrial activity with an unorganized approach to environmental standards significantly degraded the country's environment. Particle pollution in the form of a thick fog-like haze that at times was laced with harmful metals was a frequent occurrence across the country. More than 40% of communities failed to meet basic water quality standards, and in 1969, the Cuyahoga River infamously caught fire after sparks from a passing train ignited debris in the water, which was filled with heavy industrial waste. EPA was established on December 2nd, 1970, following a call by President Richard Nixon to rationally and systematically organize existing piecemeal efforts to clean up and protect the environment. Under Reorganization Plan Number 3, the EPA was to initiate a coordinated attack on the pollutants which debase the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the land that grows our food. Numerous authorities were consolidated and given to the EPA, including research, monitoring, standard setting, and enforcement activities. The mission to protect public health and the environment was born, and the first administrator was sworn in on December 4th, 1970. Congress followed suit with the landmark Clean Air Act of 1970, CAA, and the Federal Water Pollution Control Act of 1972. The subsequent Clean Air Act amendments of 1990 played a significant role in the expansion of EPA's responsibilities and legal authority, with the agency then being tasked with the development of new regulatory mechanisms that included, among other things, cap and trade, programs for the control of sulfur dioxide, and technological standards for nitrogen oxide emissions from coal-fired power plants, a vastly expanded hazardous air pollutant program, a federal operating permit program, and new regulations governing phase-out of the production of ozone-depleting substances in conjunction with U.S. ratification of the Montreal Protocol in 1988. One sec, we're having some problems here. Nuka baby girl. Okay. There we go. Just making sure our admin account can access our live stream. Okay, perfect. We're good to go. All right. One sec, guys. And there we go. One sec. Ouch. Okay. Let's go ahead and get back through this. Get my moisturizer blended in here. One sec. Okay. Okay. Now, why does it look like I have like a ton of blush on or something? I don't. Just blending my moisturizer with everything here. Okay. Okay. And I'm sort of thinking of like doing a Toby cam. Let me know if you guys want to see a Toby puppy dog cam. So Congress followed suit with the Landmark Clean Air Act of 1970, CAA, and the Federal Water Pollution Control Act of 1972. The subsequent Clean Air Act amendments of 1990 played a significant role in the expansion of EPA's responsibilities and legal authority, with the agency then being tasked with the development of new regulatory mechanisms that included, among other things, cap and trade of programs for the control of sulfur dioxide and technological standards for nitrogen oxide emissions from coal-fired power plants, a vastly expanded hazardous air pollutant program, a federal operating permit program, and new regulations governing the phase-out of the production of ozone-depleting substances, if I could talk, in conjunction with U.S. ratification of the Montreal Protocol in 1988. Subsequently, especially during the Obama administration, EPA experienced massive growth as it was used to pursue far-reaching political goals, to the point where its current activities and staffing levels far exceeded its congressional mandates and purpose. So destroy the EPA is what they're basically saying here. And while we're at it, let's add more coal and natural gas, drill baby drill, etc. Great. Again, what could go wrong? So as it says, this expansive status is entirely unnecessary. It has nothing to do with improving either the environment or public health. That's debatable. EPA's initial success was driven by clear mandates, a streamlined structure, recognition of the state's prominent role, and built-in accountability, fulfilling the agency's mission in a manner consistent with a limited government approach, proved to be extremely effective during the administration's infancy. Back to basics, EPA's structure and mission should be greatly circumscribed to reflect the principles of cooperative federalism and limited government. This will require significant restructuring and streamlining of the agency to reflect the following. State leadership. EPA should build earnest relationships with state and local officials and assume a more supportive role by sharing resources and expertise, recognizing that the primary role in making choices about the environment belongs to the people who live in it, which is what's been happening, but anyway. Accountable progress. Regulatory efforts should focus on addressing tangible environmental problems with practical, cost-beneficial, affordable solutions to clean up the air, water, and soil, and the results should be measured and tracked by simple metrics that are available to the public, like they already have been. Streamlined process, duplicative, wasteful, or superfluous programs that do not tangibly support the agency's mission should be eliminated, and a structured management program should be designed to assist state and local governments in protecting public health and the environment. Healthy, thriving communities. EPA should consider and reduce as much as possible the economic costs of its action on local communities to help them thrive and prosper. Compliance before enforcement. EPA should foster cooperative relationships with the regulated community, especially small businesses that encourage compliance over enforcement. Transparent science and regulatory analysis. EPA should make public and take comment on all scientific studies and analyses that support regulatory decision making. Administrator's Office and Reorganization Responsibility. The Office of the Administrator, AO, is intended to provide executive and logistical support for the EPA Administrator. Its stated purpose is to support EPA leadership and activities to implement policies that are consistent with the conservative EPA. The agency will have to undergo a major reorganization. The Deputy Chief for Policy position within the Administrator's Office should be renamed the Deputy Chief of Staff for Regulatory Improvement. This position would oversee a reorganization effort that includes the following actions: returning the environmental justice function to the AO, eliminating the standalone Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights, returning the enforcement and compliance function to the media offices, air, water, land, and emergency management, etc., and eliminating the standalone Office of Enforcement and Compliance Assistance, which has created a mismatch between standard setting and implementation. Using enforcement to ensure compliance, not to achieve extra statutory objectives. Developing a plan for relocating regional offices so that they are more accessible to the areas they serve and deliver cost savings to the American people. Restructuring the Office of International and Tribal Affairs into the American Indian Environmental Office, and returning the international liaison function to media offices where appropriate. Let's make sure we name it as insultingly as possible, guys. Don't do any of that woke shit where you respect people and, don't name things insultingly and grossly. Wouldn't want that. We wouldn't want that. We need our reputation to remain intact. Ugh. Just breaking the cast here of my hair gel. Okay, let's see. What do we got here? All right, guys. If anybody's interested in a Toby camera, let me know. I'll turn one of my cameras to face Mr. Toby, since he's adorable and probably much more interesting as a dog than I am as a person. Using enforcement to ensure compliance, not to achieve extra statutory objectives. Developing a plan for relocating regional offices so that they are more accessible to the areas that they serve and deliver cost savings to the American people, restructuring the Office of International Tribal Affairs, like we just said, into the American Indian Environmental Office, and returning the international liaison function of to media offices where appropriate, eliminating the Office of Children's Health Protection and the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization from the AO, and reabsorbing those functions within the media offices: air, water, land, and emergency management, etc. Reviewing the grants program to ensure that taxpayer funds go to organizations focused on tangible environmental improvements free from political affiliation. Resetting science advisory boards to expand opportunities for a diversity of scientific viewpoints, okay, free from political potential conflicts of interest. So what they're saying is, climate scientists who think that climate change isn't a thing are welcome, basically. So scientific viewpoints free of potential conflicts of interest. That basically means to them people who don't believe in climate change. Restoring the guidance portal to ensure that regulatory and sub-regulatory standards are clear to affected entities, working with assistant administrators to implement major reforms in media offices. Day 1 executive order to initiate the review and reorganization. A Day 1 executive order should be drafted for the incoming president with explicit language requiring reconsideration of the agency's structure with reference to fulfilling its mission to create a better environmental tomorrow with clean air, safe water, healthy soil, and thriving communities. The order should set up pause and review teams to assess the following: major rules and guidance materials, identify existing rules to be stayed and repurposed, and initiate rule development in appropriate media offices, pending petitions, grant new petitions for rule consideration and stays of rules, stop all grants to advocacy groups, and review which potential federal investments will lead to tangible environmental improvements. Legal settlements, reassess any sue and settle cases, and develop a new policy to establish standard review and oversight, including public notification and participation, employee review, and determine the opportunity to downsize by terminating the newest hires. Nice. In low-value programs and identity relocation opportunities for senior executive services, SES positions, budget review, develop a tiered-down approach to cut costs, reduce the number of full-time equivalent FTE positions, and eliminate duplicative programs. EPA should not conduct any ongoing or planned activity for which there is not clear and current congressional authorization, and it should communicate this shift in the president's first budget request. Risk management policy, revise guidance documents that control regulations such as the social cost of carbon, discount rates, timing of regulatory review before options are selected, causality of health effects, low dose risk estimation, linear note threshold analysis, and employment loss analysis. Personnel. The majority of the political appointee team must be assembled, vetted, and ready to deploy before Day 1. To the extent provided by the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, appointees in consideration for the Senate confirmed positions, excluding the administrator, should be prepared to serve as a deputy or principal deputy to get into the agency on Day 1 while their nomination and affiliated confirmation processes proceeds. In addition to a deputy slated for the assistant administrator role, each office will need a political chief of staff. Sorry, my eyes are bothering me. Senior advisors designated to run sub offices and energized assistants. No word yet on how we're going to get them energized. Teams should be balanced with technical knowledge, legal expertise, and political exposure. Ideally, they should also be geographically diverse. Appointee positions. Wait, I thought diversity was bad, guys. Oh my gosh. Thought diversity was bad now. Don't say diverse. Don't say diverse. Appointee positions should also extend to all the regional offices and specialty labs. Office of Air and Radiation, OAR. I'll get you in a minute, my love. Kitty needs her medicine in a little bit. OAR, so Office of Air and Radiation, OAR develops national programs, policies, and regulations to control air pollution and radiation exposure. In recent decades, OAR and its statutory responsibilities under the Clean Air Act have been reimagined in an attempt to expand the reach of the federal government. Okay. The U.S. Supreme Court has stopped and stricken several actions from OAR under liberal administrations, citing a lack of requisite legal support. A reformed OAR should focus on EPA's mission of limiting and minimizing criteria and hazardous air pollutants in partnership with the states. Cross-cutting reforms. OAR consists of 4 sub-offices, with 2 located in Washington, D.C., 1 in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and 1 in Research Triangle Park in Raleigh, North Carolina. The following reforms should be implemented across all OAR offices. Issue a rule to ensure consistent and transparent consideration of costs. When doing cost-benefit analysis, use appropriate discount rates. Focus on the benefits of reducing the pollutants targeted by Congress. Identify co-benefits separately and acknowledge the uncertainties involved in the qualifying benefits. Review and revise reasonably available control technology, RACT. Cost guidance to ensure that calculations are accurate and reflect the actual regulatory burden, including costs of air rules implementation and compliance. Obey Congress's direction in CAA 321 to, quote, conduct continuing evaluations, unquote, of the employment and plant closure effects of air regulations. Ensure that all provisions of CAA 307D are observed. Congress placed special constraints on air rules, and that intent should be respected to the extent that the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, remains in place. Ensure to the maximum extent possible that grants and funding are provided to state regulatory entities and not to nonprofits. Interesting. Remove any regulations or requirements that confer on third parties any authorities that have been provided to EPA, such as the Oil and Gas Supplemental, which created a super emitter response program that allows third parties to act as EPA enforcers. Policy-specific actions, National Ambient Air Quality Standards, NAAQS, EPA adopted by regulation a goal of restoring natural visibility by 2064. The statute does not require this, and EPA should consider whether a longer timeline is less disruptive or more realistic. Regional haze rules should be revised to prevent subsequent planning periods from being abused to compel the shutdown of disfavored facilities. Under the Good Neighbor Program / Interstate Pollutant Transport Program, review Biden era regulations to ensure that they do not over-control upwind states in violation of the statute as construed by the U.S. Supreme Court. Reverse the program's 2022 expansion beyond power plants. Putting guardrails on downwind states is an abuse of the CAA 126B petition process. EPA must ensure, in keeping with statutory text, that petitions identify a reasonably discrete group of upwind sources alleged to violate the Good Neighbor provision. Ensure that the Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee, CASAC, considers all of the statutorily charged factors, for example, social and economic effects resulting from NAAQS attainment and maintenance strategies. Ensure that the requirements EPA puts on a state that has achieved attainment status from non-attainment status are limited to those who are statutorily required, and remove any regulatory differences between attainment and maintenance that are not explicitly required by law. Streamline the process for state and local governments to demonstrate that their federally funded highway projects will not interfere with NAAQS attainment. Adopt policies to prevent abuse of CAA's error correction. What? Authority? Oh my God. One sec, guys. I'm just creating a couple of clips here. One quick sec. Also, I'm gonna fuck with this a little bit. All right. Hold up. Okay. One quick sec. Sorry about that. Okay. This thing's being a pain in the butt. Okay, there we go. Make sure this one's good too. One sec. Trying to make sure that I create a couple clips here and there too. Alrighty. Okay. There we go. Whoop. Whoop. Hello. Okay. And actually, I'm going to get over here and get like a little bit more comfortable because this is a very irritating position to be in. Jesus Christ. Do I want to get back more? I think I do. Okay. Ooh, it's cold. Okay, are we good? I think we're good. Other leggy up here. And hopefully we don't fly all over the place, but we'll see. Okay, so much more comfortable for me, but I don't know if y'all could see me anymore. Maybe I need to adjust this a little bit. Hold on. Fuck. There we go. Adjust that down a little bit, I think. No. Anyway. Here we go. Back at it. Streamline the process for Jesus Christ. Streamline the process for state and local governments to demonstrate that their federally funded highway projects will not interfere with NAAQS attainment. Adopt policies to prevent abuse of EPA CAA error correction authority. EPA historically has used this to coerce states into adopting its favored policies on pain of imposition of a federal implementation plan, FIP. Okay. We don't want an FIP. Okay. Limit EPA's reliance on CA 301, General Rulemaking Authority, to ensure that it is not abused to issue regulations for which EPA lacks substantive authority elsewhere in the statute. If possible, return the standard setting role to Congress. Oh my God, that's so much more comfortable. Climate change. Remove the Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program, GHGRP, for any source category that is not currently being regulated. The overall reporting program imposes significant burdens on small businesses and companies that are not being regulated. This is either a pointless burden or a sword of Damocles that threatens a future of regulation, neither of which is appropriate. Establish a system with an appropriate deadline to update the 2009 endangerment finding. Establish a significant emissions rate, SER, for greenhouse gases, GHGs. Regulating hydrofluorocarbons under the American Innovation and Manufacturing, AIM Act. Repeal Biden administration implementing regulations for the AIM Act that are unnecessarily stringent and costly. Refrain from granting petitions from opportunistic manufacturers to add new restrictions that further skew the market toward costlier refrigerants and equipment. Conduct realistic cost assessments that reflect actual consumer experiences instead of the current unrealistic ones claiming that the program is virtually cost-free. Okay. One sec. making sure I haven't been kicked out of my own live stream on my admin accounts. It does like to assume that it's like, I don't know, an AI viewer or something, which obviously I'm not. Like, look, if absolutely no one watches my stream, fair enough, but I'm not gonna pay for fucking AI viewers, I'll tell you that much. Like, who would? I don't know. Okay. One sec. Hold on. Just clipping a couple things here, guys. If you guys feel like clipping, feel free. I know this isn't like as exciting as like a chess stream, let's say, but I think it's still worth, I don't know, I think it's still worth, you know, clipping, like, personally. But that's just me. That's just a theory. Conduct realistic cost assessments that reflect actual consumer experiences instead of the current unrealistic ones claiming that the program is virtually cost-free. Sure. Mobile source regulation by the Office of Transportation and Air Quality established GHG car standards under Department of Transportation DOT leadership that properly consider cost, choice, safety, and national security. Review the existing ramp rate for car standards to ensure that it is actually achievable. Include life cycle emissions of electric vehicles and consider all of their environmental impacts. Restore the position that California's waiver applies only to California specific issues like ground level ozone, not global climate issues. Ensure that other states can adopt California's standards only for traditional / criteria pollutants, not greenhouse gases. Stop the use of the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, to increase standards on airplanes. Reconsider the Cleaner Trucks initiative to balance the goal of driving down emissions without creating significant costs or complex burdens on the industry. Okay. Air permitting reforms for new source review. My lips and my fucking throat get dry doing this, so give me a sec here. Bear with me. So, again, reconsider the Cleaner Trucks initiative to balance the goal of driving down emissions without creating significant costs or complex burdens on the industry. Air permitting reforms for new source review pre-construction permits and Title V operating permits. Develop reforms to ensure that when a facility improves efficiency within its production process, new permitting requirements are not triggered. Restore the Trump EPA position on once in, always in, that major sources can convert to area sources when affiliated emissions standards are met. Revisit permitting and enforcement assumptions that sources will operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. This artificially inflates a source's potential to emit PTE, which can result in more stringent permit terms. defend the position that petitions to object to Title V should not be used to second-guess previous state decisions. That seems oddly specific. Clarify the relationship between new source review and Title V to ensure that Title V is used only as intended by Congress. CAA Section 111. Restore the position that EPA cannot regulate a new pollutant from an already regulated source category without making predicate findings for that new pollutant. Institute automatic withdrawal for any proposed rule that is not finalized within the statutorily prescribed 1-year period. Revise general implementing regulations for existing source regulatory authority under CAA 111D to ensure that EPA gives full meaning to Congress's direction, including source-specific application, and that the state planning program is flexible, federalist, and deferential to the states. CAA Section 112, hazardous air pollutants. Gosh, can't wait to hear about this one. Unregulated point or non-point source fugitive emissions of an already regulated hazardous air pollutant do not require maximum available control technology, MACT standard. Ensure that Section 112 regulations are harmonized with Section 111 regulations that apply to the same sector sources. Ensure that cost-benefit analysis is focused on a regulation's targeted pollutant and separately identify ancillary or co-benefits. Radiation. Assess and update the agency's radiation standards so that they align with those of other agencies, including the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Department of Energy, and Department of Transportation, as well as international standards. Level set past misleading statements regarding radiological risk and reassess the linear non-threshold standard. Personnel, budget, and office restructuring. Place a political appointee in Ann Arbor, Michigan for the Offices of Transportation and Air Quality, OTAQ, regulating mobile sources, and a political appointee in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina for the Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards, OAQPS, regulating stationary sources, and give those appointees requisite titles and authority to oversee the OTAQ and OAQPS staff. Establish a political chief of staff in DC to manage the entire air office. I'll get you in a little bit, Kitty, I know. Pull the renewable fuel standards program out of OTAQ. Establish its own sub-office in DC with status parallel to OTAQ and OAQPS that is headed by a political appointee, and establish a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Energy to work together to establish RFS programs. Require regional air offices to receive approval from OAR before moving forward with enforcement actions in order to ensure that enforcement is meeting the requirements established by regulations and is not going beyond them. Office of Water, OW. Come on, kitty. Baby chooch. Jesus Christ. Okay, Office of Water, OW. OW is responsible for ensuring safe drinking water and restoring and maintaining oceans, watersheds, and their aquatic ecosystems to protect human health, support economic and recreational activities, and provide healthy habitats for fish, plants, and wildlife. Its two main statutes include implementing the Clean Water Act, CWA, and Safe Drinking Water Act, SDWA. OW has generated a large number of expansive regulations that infringe on private property rights, most notably with the Waters of the U.S. program. Needed reforms. The overarching theme for reform is guidance on guidance. OW relies heavily on guidance documents that are outdated and that sometimes have been in a deliberative state for years. Additionally, there are significant issues surrounding OW's holding up guidance as something more than simply guidance, as something akin to law in certain circumstances. The August 6, 2019 Office of Water Policy for Draft Documents Memorandum should be strictly enforced to ensure transparency as well as good governance by not letting guidance linger in draft form and by also ensuring that guidance documents are clearly just that, guidance. They do not have the effect of law and should not be treated by the office as if they did have any such effect. As a matter of broad practice, OW should be complying with statutorily established deadlines in all situations with only minimal exceptions, right, Kitty? Not necessarily. Anyway, in cases where statutory deadlines will not be met, senior management should be made aware of the delay and should have an opportunity to determine whether alternative courses should be taken. Anna Marie, you are fucking chooching me here. You're chooching my boobies, Anna. You're a little shit of a kitty. An adorable, sweet little shit of a kitty. She's so precious. She's so precious. Yes, she is. Is she so precious? She is. She's so perfect. Doing okay, baby? You alright? Okay. Okay. I love you. Baby. As a matter of broad practice, OW should be complying with statutorily established deadlines in all situations with only minimal exceptions. In cases where statutory deadlines will not be met, senior management should be made aware of the delay and should have an opportunity to determine whether, alternative courses should be taken, depending on the outcome of regulations from the Biden administration as well as intervention by the Supreme Court on both borders of the United States. WTUS and CWA Section 401, the repeal and reissuance of new regulations should be pursued. New regulations should include the following: to codify the definition and Rapanos v. United States that waters of the United States can refer only to relatively permanent, standing, or continuously flowing bodies of water, as opposed to ordinarily dry channels through which water occasionally or intermittently flows. A rule that provides clarity and regulatory certainty regarding the CWA Section 401 water quality certification process to limit unnecessary delay for needed projects, including by establishing a discharge-only approach with a limited scope from point sources into navigable waters, assessing only water quality factors that are consistent with specific CWA sections, and excluding speculative analysis regarding future potential harm. I don't know about that. A rule to ensure that CWA Section 308 has a clear and enforced time limit. A rule to clarify the standard for criminal negligence under CWA Sections 402 and 404. A rule to prohibit retroactive or preemptive permits under CWA Section 404. A rule to promote and preemptive, like what? Anyway, a rule to promote and shape nutrient trading that utilizes a carrot versus stick approach when dealing with nutrient compliance. Jeez Louise. A rule to update compensatory mitigation that imposes no new or additional requirements beyond current law. A rule on updates necessary for the effective use of the CWA needs survey. An executive order requiring EPA to find avenues and expedite the process for states obtaining primacy in available CWA and SDWA programs. This order would require coordination with the Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of the Interior, implementation of additional policies to address challenges in water workforce, issues surrounding timely actions on primacy, applications, and cybersecurity. Budget with the overall goal. While the overall goal, is certainly to reduce government spending, there is one very targeted area where increased spending would be in the nation's interest. The Clean Water Act needs survey the Clean Water Act needs survey is the entire basis for how congressionally appropriated funds directed to state revolving funds, standard annual appropriations that are the true underpinning of all infrastructure funding for drinking water and clean water are distributed by EPA across the country. What? This is written so strangely. because this program is currently underfunded, money is being thrown at untargeted locations while water infrastructure is crumbling at other locations. Increased target funding would greatly benefit water systems across the country at a time when intervention is crucial, leaving fewer communities with significant water service challenges. Personnel. OW would benefit greatly from the reshifting of SES employees to different programs and from headquarters out to regional offices. Office of Land and Emergent Management, OLEM. OLEM's mission is to partner with other federal agencies, states, tribes, local governments, and communities to clean up legacy pollution. Like only legacy pollution? Anyway, legacy pollution. And revitalize land for reuse. OLEM OLEM, I was thinking executives and executes, and I said both words at once. That was fun. OLEM executes this mission by protecting human health and the environment while leveraging economic opportunities and creating jobs. Like, in what way? OLEM also oversees the agency's emergency response. The main statutes that OLEM executes are the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, RCRA, to regulate waste management, the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation and Liability Act, CRCLA, to clean up Superfund sites and provide resources for cleaning up brownfield sites, and Section 112R of the Clean Air Act to reduce the likelihood of accidental chemical releases. Needed reforms. OLEM's main function is to oversee the execution of cleanups under CRCLA and RCRA. Therefore, it is critical that OLEM staff focus on project management more than policy creation. Emphasizing productivity more than process and policies can result in more work on the ground in communities where Americans live and work. OLEM can accomplish this goal by determining the scope of work on an actual reduction in exposure to chemicals as opposed to the elimination of the theoretical potential exposures. To manage cleanups more effectively, OLEM should require training in project management for project managers as opposed to all staff having a general science background. Adopt EPA's Lean Management System, ELEMS, across all OLEM programs. Delegate all CRCLA authority from the administrator to the OLEM assistant administrator as opposed to a direct delegation to the regional administrators. Find opportunities to transfer work and funding to states and tribes. New policies, Superfund, to execute more efficient and effective cleanups. The following changes are needed in the Office of Superfund Remediation and Technology Innovation, OSRTI. Revise the National Oil and Hazardous Substances Pollution Contingency Plan to the NCP to modernize and streamline the cleanup process using lessons learned from the execution of the NCP over the past 40 plus years. Increase the use of CRCLA removal authority to execute short-term cleanups, which will provide clarity and finality for potentially responsible parties, PRPs, and return cleaned up land to communities more swiftly. Streamline the process for determining applicable or relevant and appropriate requirements based on commonalities across sites as opposed to making such determinations on a side-by-side basis. Revise groundwater cleanup regulations and policies to reflect the challenges of omnipresent contaminants like PFAS. Revisit the designation of PFAS chemicals as hazardous substances under CERCLA. What? Allow PRPs. So are we saying we're not going to track PFAS anymore? Anyway, allow PRPs to perform the statutorily required 5-year reviews of Superfund cleanups to free OLEM resources. Expand and fully stand up the Office of Mountains, Deserts, and Plains to support innovative approaches to the cleaning of abandoned mines. Develop and execute a 10-year cleanup plan to address lead at all existing cleanup sites that includes benchmarks and milestones that allow for congressional and public oversight of the schedule. RCRA. To streamline waste management, the following changes are needed in the Office of Resource Conservation and Recovery. ORCR. Create an RCRA post-closure permit that is tailored only to post-closure obligations. Modify regulations that impede resource efficiency, recycling, and reuse by providing clearly that these materials are not waste. This can be done by promulgating a rule that provides an alternative pathway, I'll get you in a minute, buddy, to hazardous waste regulation to allow the transport of material to legitimate recyclers or back to manufacturers to support the recycling and reuse of material. Change the electronic manifest, e-manifest regulations to a 100% electronic system and eliminate all paper manifests and manual filing and data input. The system should operate from a range of common handheld devices and could be expanded to accommodate solid waste and materials for reuse and recycling. Reassign regulations and enforcement of air emission standards under the authority of RCRA Section 3004 to OAR and revise and modernize the regulations to comport and integrate with CAA rules. Risk Management Program. If a new Risk Management Program, RMP, rule is finalized by the Biden administration, it should be revised to reflect the amendments finalized in 2019 to protect sensitive information. Well, that's a moot point. Personnel. The following organizational changes could create resource efficiencies to focus on the highest value opportunities. Eliminate or consolidate the regional laboratories and allow OLEM to use EPA, other government or private labs based on expertise and cost. Consolidate non-core functions, communications, economists, congressional relations, etc. into one OLEM sub-office to allow the subject matter offices to focus on the execution of field work. Eliminate the Office of Emergency Management and reassign its functions. 1. Move the Emergency Management function, currently OEM, into Homeland Security under the Administrator's Office. 2. Incorporate Removal Authority, currently OEM, into OSRTI. Retain, 3, the oversight and enforcement of the RMP program within OLEM. 4, drop, quote, emergency management, unquote, from OLEM's name. Budget. While the overall goal is certainly to reduce government scope and spending, OLEM's programs present the best opportunity to use taxpayer dollars to execute EPA's core mission of cleaning up contamination. Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention, OCSPP. OCSPP primarily oversees the regulation of new and existing chemicals under the Toxic Substances Control Act, TSCA, and the regulation of pesticides under the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, FIFRA, and Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, FFDCA. These activities are managed in 2 separate offices within OCSPP. The Office of Pollution Prevention and Toxics, OPPT, Chemicals, and Office of Pesticide Programs, OPP. Yeah, you know me. Pesticides, OCSPP is constantly pressured to ban the use of certain chemicals, typically based on fear as a result of mischaracterized or incomplete science. What? Pardon? Anyway, needed reforms and new policy in OPPT chemicals ensure that decision-making is risk-based rather than defaulting to precautionary hazard-based approaches like the Integrated Risk Information System, IRIS. Focus the scope of chemical evaluations on pathways of exposure that are not covered by other program offices and other environmental statutes, and eliminate scope creep to, well, they used the term correctly this time, so yay, I guess, to ensure that evaluations can be completed in a timely manner consistent with these statutory requirements. Ensure that new chemical evaluations are conducted in a timely manner. consistent with statutory requirements to ensure the competitiveness of U.S. manufacturers. For new chemicals, reset the program to ensure that reviews are completed on a timeline that is consistent with the statute. This includes revising the regulations governing the reviews of new chemicals, ensure that risk evaluations and risk management rules presume that workplaces are following all OSHA requirements, including requirements for personal protective equipment, PPE, apply real-world use of chemicals when assessing conditions of use for risk evaluations, transition the Safer Choice program to the private sector, right-size the TSCA, i.e. downsize, fees, rules so that it is consistent with the tasks that the agency is actually completing within the timelines of the statute and is not covering the costs of EPA inefficiency or overreach. Revise existing policies to address the requirements of the 2016 Lautenberg Amendment to the TSCA. Develop a framework rule for risk management approaches that will be used under TSCA for existing chemicals. Needed reforms and new policy in OPP pesticides. OPP should rely on Department of Agriculture and state usage data that reflect actual pesticide use and registration reviews and Endangered Species Act, ESA analyses. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries Service should rely on similar data in their ESA analyses. OPP has rigorous testing requirements that registrants must meet before pesticides are allowed on the market. However, when pesticides undergo registration review every 15 years, EPA relies on publicly available data with differing levels of quality and transparency. Data standards are needed to ensure that information relied on by EPA is made available to the agency at a similar level as the original testing data conducted by registrants to ensure that EPA can conduct a robust review and analysis of the data. ESA reform for pesticides is necessary when approving pesticides. FIFRA allows for cost-benefit balancing, recognizing that pesticides are effective precisely because they harm pests. Well, you don't say. Shocking information. However, the ESA does not allow for any consideration of the beneficial effects of pesticides. That's where we're at, I guess. In order to meet ESA obligations, pesticide uses are severely restricted, leaving growers with limited tools for crop protection. New policies are needed to ensure that other program offices such as ORD, OW, and OLEM will defer to OPP on toxicity issues. OPP has rigorous testing requirements for pesticide ingredients and products to ensure before they go to market that their use will not harm human health and the environment. Assessments by other offices are redundant. While individual pesticide registrations are considered adjudications and not reviewed by the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, consistent with a 1993 OMB guidance, when pesticide tolerances and registrations are withdrawn by the agency as opposed to being withdrawn voluntarily by registrants. These actions should undergo coordinated interagency review managed by OMB. Budget. The Biden administration has expanded the scope and breadth of regulatory actions with respect to OPPT and OPP, but both programs continue to maintain that resources are insufficient. OPPT chemicals suffers from a lack of leadership and an inability to complete the most basic requirements efficiently and in a timely fashion. While EPA has asked for more resources, including higher industry fees, it is not clear that it has the capacity to use additional dollars efficiently. With regard to OPP pesticides, pesticide manufacturers feel the program is underfunded and would like its budget to be increased so that pesticide actions can be reviewed more quickly. Manufacturers are also willing to pay higher fees to the fee-based portion of the program. However, grower groups have been disappointed by EPA's actions and have significant concerns about EPA's ability to conduct science-based risk assessments and take risk management actions that appropriately balance benefits and risks as required by FIFRA. Guardrails and third-party audits should be part of any funding increases through the Pesticide Registration Improvement Act, PRIA, or other mechanisms. Office of Research and Development, ORD, and related science activities. While much of this work has not been authorized by law, EPA conducts a wide variety of intramural, if I could talk, and extramural research, development, regulatory science, science advisory, peer review, risk assessment, and risk management activities. This enterprise includes the Office of Research and Development, ORD, the agency's largest employer, as well as science activities across other key programs, regions, and cross-cutting parts of the administrator's office. EPA's scientific enterprise, including ORD, has rightly been criticized for decades as precautionary, bloated, unaccountable, closed, outcome-driven, hostile to public and legislative input, and inclined to pursue political rather than purely scientific goals. I just wanted to see how long this section was, but it seems like it's going to be kind of on the longer side. So let's pick this back up tomorrow. I'll try to come back with a chess stream tonight eventually because y'all have earned it. I'll probably be on tomorrow morning and evening just trying to knock this thing out because I think it's important to read through. I really do. I've learned so much reading through it already, and I hope some of you have too. Please consider joining the Discord. The link is in the description of this live stream. That's where we're doing note-taking and research and that sort of thing. And I'd love to invite you to join us there.